All right, we're live. Check the mic. Instant reaction for week 14. Say it, Steve. Another wild week in the NFL, so let's break it all down. Sam, let's start with the Vikings. What a game with the Falcons, 21-21 going into the fourth quarter. Vikings scored the last 21 points, go 21-0 in the fourth quarter. Sam Darnold with 5 passing touchdowns. He continues to come through bigly in this game. The Vikings in their passing attack, man. Very impressed with what they're able to do.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it from the final score, but this was a pretty close game for the majority of it. And then the Vikings offense, took over late in the game, and Atlanta made a couple of mistakes in the Vikings defense. I mean, Byron Murphy with a one-handed turnover to really help them along. But yeah, I tweeted out, how close are we to Sam Darnold entering the MVP conversation? Forget just, is he good or not? Is he about to fall off the cliff? Or is he going to go bad again? He's got to be putting together some kind of MVP case at this stage. But, Justin Jefferson had a monster game. Jordan Addison had an even bigger game with more targets, more catches, more yards, an extra touchdown. That duo of receivers is incredible. That's apparently the first time that Vikings receivers, 2 of them in the same game, have ever had 100 yards and at least 2 touchdowns each, right? Which, that wouldn't be much of a statement for a lot of teams because 102 touchdowns for 2 guys is quite impressive. But the Vikings had Chris Carter and Randy Moss simultaneously. They had the kinds of receivers that would have happened to, and it didn't. It's only Addison and Jefferson that have put it together.
Wow, yeah, that is an amazing stat, and that's what I came away with watching the Vikings. So I credit Darnold. I'm going to say this statement not to take anything away from Darnold, of course, but I think the Vikings do have the best pass catchers in the NFL. The way Jordan Addison has developed, we know what Justin Jefferson can do. Finally found the end zone again. What TJ Hawkinson can do at tight end, and they've done a really nice job getting all of the complementary receivers going this year. Whether it's a Jalen Naylor, whether it's a Josh Oliver, they've done a really nice job. Aaron Jones out of the backfield. Just outstanding, but cannot be more impressed with Sam Darnold and what he's done over these last few weeks. I'll repeat it again. A couple weeks ago, had an awful game against Jacksonville, almost handed the game to the lowly Jaguars. But since that point, maybe the best quarterback in the league over the last 4 weeks. And Darnold's ability, they are so aggressive, man. At one point into the fourth quarter, average depth of target was about 16 for Darnold. They are attacking with an aggressiveness that not many teams around the league are doing. They know that they have the best receiving core, and they're attacking downfield like it. So I think that we've talked a lot about Flores and his defense, but the offense deserves their credit, especially the last few weeks. They're tough to stop.
Yeah, and Kevin O'Connell made the point that Jacksonville game was, he was talking about it as a learning experience, a learning opportunity for Darnold, and it's his growth or bounce back from that's been really impressive, and it has. Everyone has a bad game, right? Nobody puts together any kind of candidacy, MVP candidacy, or even just a good season without a bad game in there somewhere. Jared Goff had a couple to start the season. Everyone's had one somewhere. So Darnold was always going to have a bad game somewhere, but has immediately bounced back, put it behind him, and looked like it wasn't a thing. It hasn't lingered in his, makeup. He's just playing really good.
So the most difficult thing, I think, for the Vikings is just hanging tough, staying 1 game behind the Lions. They did it. 4 games to go. They've got the Bears, Seahawks, Packers, and then the Lions in Week 18. See if they can keep pace. They're still in the mix, obviously, for the NFC North, the number 1 seed, and everything else that comes with it here down the stretch. Where else to go here? How about Dolphins, Jets? I know it doesn't mean a ton for the standings, but the Dolphins are still fighting for that number 7 seed, so every game does mean a lot. They go to 6-7, a walk-off win in overtime, 32-26. I really thought this was the week that the Jets didn't find a new way to lose, but they did. They found a new way to lose in this one, in a game where I thought Aaron Rodgers probably played, his best game in quite a while.
Yeah, it officially eliminates them, finally. The Jets, who have been effectively done for weeks now, they are now officially eliminated. Classic Jets, right? This is their season in a nutshell. That looked like everything had actually been fixed. Aaron Rodgers was playing really well. Garrett Wilson went off. Devontae Adams went off. Both those guys were over 100. They were getting some good plays out of their running backs. Isaiah Davis, the other rookie. Everyone's focused on Braylon Allen so far this season, but Isaiah Davis was making some plays. Everything was going well for the Jets. They took the lead, and then a big kick return, and it's just enough for the Dolphins to get into range. Jason Sanders with one at the end of the first half and then one at the end of the game, two 50-plus yarders to get points on the board just to keep Miami alive. And then once they won the toss in overtime, just methodical touchdown drive, iced the game. So classic Jets this season, right? Even when things go well, they go badly. Even when things look like it had been fixed, they still found a way of losing the game. And that's why they're eliminated.
It's still very true. I mean, they got the game-winning field goal with under a minute, or the go-ahead field goal with under a minute, and before that bad kickoff return that they allowed, and it became the Jonnu Smith drive to finish it. A couple big screens to Jonnu Smith, and then the game winner to Jonnu Smith, an absolute dime from Tua, 10-yard touchdown. But boy, that was a really nice throw to seal the deal, to get the walk-off touchdown. So look, Miami's still alive. I mean, if we'll break it all down tomorrow as we always do, but Miami, they're 12-0 against the Jets and Patriots with Tua as the starting quarterback. It is like the narrative of the Dolphins beat bad teams and haven't really beat a bunch of good teams. They can't do anything about that this week, but they had to continue to take care of business so that they can at least be playing for that final playoff spot in the coming weeks, depending on how things break. So huge game for them. And as you mentioned, the Jets officially eliminated in what we already know is, next season's going to look a lot different, I think, as far as this roster, head coach, general manager, the whole deal.
Yeah, I mean, in a funny way, it doesn't change anything for anybody, right? Like, we knew the Jets were done already, and for Miami, all they could do is stay alive this week. Like, nothing they could have done this week changes any of the narratives on Miami, which is they can beat bad teams. They can't necessarily do it against good teams or late in the year in bad weather. None of those things were possible to fix or disprove this week because the Jets aren't very good. So all they could do is get the win some way, somehow, stay alive, and try and deal with it down the road.
Steelers-Browns. Steelers, got their revenge after the Winter Wonderland loss a couple weeks ago. 27-14 was the final. Looked like the Steelers were letting them back in late, but another Jameis Winston interception. Jameis finished with 2 picks in this game. Probably a couple other turnover-worthy plays in there. And I thought the statement throw of the game, Russell Wilson gets to his second read, throws a laser up the seam to Pat Freiermuth for a touchdown. Just outstanding. And Pittsburgh's defense really played much better this week than they did in that snow game.
Yeah, again, I think Russell Wilson played pretty well as well without George Pickens, who was, stood down in the game because of a hamstring that they didn't want to risk. So, I mean, Pickens has been by far the Steelers' number one receiver this year, the guy that they really lean on, the guy that Russell Wilson, heaves the ball up to in the general vague direction and assumes that good things are going to happen. He wasn't out there, so you saw, Pat Freiermuth making some plays. You saw Mike Williams with a spectacular one-handed catch down the sideline. You saw the touchdown to Van Jefferson. It's all the other guys in that offense that had to make some plays, and I think Russ made just enough plays to make it work. And as you said, the Steelers' defense showed up well. I mean, Jameis was delivered from pick sixes. Unfortunately, he wasn't delivered from just picks. That's part of the equation, right? Like, yes, pick six is the worst thing you can do with the football, but it's only a bit better than just turning it over in the first place, right? Ideally, like, as long as we're shooting for the moon here, how about we just wish to not turn the ball over at all? And then maybe good things could really happen.
You're saying Jameis needs to recalibrate the prayer this week? Is that the just take out the pick six part?
It's like the art of negotiating, right? You shoot high knowing that you're going to compromise somewhere in the middle. So maybe Jameis should have been like, look, as long as I'm asking, how about I would like to be delivered from any bad decision, And then the compromise will be, well, okay, maybe we just settle on the occasional interception.
A great game that came down to the wire, the Eagles and the Panthers, man. I mean, it didn't look like a 3-9 team going up against one of the best teams in the league, but the Eagles get the win. They move to 11-2. Another week, I don't know if Bryce Young was great throw for throw, but I think he showed a ton again to hang tough with the Eagles. But Philadelphia, Saquon Barkley got his 120-plus yards again. Jalen Hurts with a couple big plays in this game as well. And then the Eagles defense make the final stops, man. I thought, well, kind of. Bryce Young to Xavier Leggett, right? We'll give credit to the defense, right? The defense only gave up 16, but Leggett drops that pass, lands at about the 1 or 2 yard line, would have rolled into the end zone for the go-ahead touchdown with just seconds left in the game. I thought Bryce Young once again showed a ton under pressure and with, tough odds against him, against a great Eagles team.
Yeah, he had a couple of pretty rough plays in there, so I think
He
his
did.
grade will overall end up not great, but it didn't break him. I mean, there were early in the season, if he'd done that, he would have gone into a shell. We would have seen a terrible Bryce Young, and there was no chance that they would have come back. He basically did execute the game-winning drive. Like you said, he puts the ball in the hands of his receiver again, and I mean, the high leverage plays or the level of his best plays that Panthers receivers have dropped or not come up with this season is insane. Adam Thielen, the last couple of weeks, has actually made a lot of them, so I kind of want to exclude him from this. But rookie Xavier Legette has to come down with that ball. Has to. It's an open play. They've found it. They found the play. They got behind the defense. They've exploited them. That should have been a go-ahead touchdown, and instead Legette doesn't quite come up with the ball. It wasn't like a complete and total drop, but didn't catch it cleanly. Didn't get the touchdown, and after that, they weren't quite able to make the play. So, another game where you're quite impressed by Bryce Young, even if there were a couple of bad plays in there, which hadn't been there the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I wouldn't feel bad if you're an Eagles fan, like not look at the records. The Panthers have been a completely different team over the last few weeks, right? They took
look, the
Tampa
Chiefs
Bay,
barely squeaked by them.
Yeah, the Chiefs barely got by. The Bucs, who are now in first place, talk about them in a second. Panthers and Bucs went to overtime, and Eagles theoretically they did make the stop on 4th and long at the end. Again, they're playing the Steelers next week. Great game next week. Steelers and Eagles battle for Pennsylvania. If the Eagles can get through that, they've got 3 division games. Commanders, Giants, Cowboys, that they could finish strong. And again, they're in the mix for that number 1 seed as well. Mentioned the Bucs, and for the first time since, I don't know, very early in the season, the Bucs are in first place in the NFC South. That flips with the Atlanta loss. So the Bucs get the win 28-13 against the Raiders. Looked like the Raiders might sneak a little comeback in there, but then Aiden O'Connell also injured. Kind of hurt that a little bit. Bucs, without Bucky Irving, ran the ball pretty effectively in an outstanding final touchdown, I guess, against the all-out blitz. Great call by Liam Cohen and the Bucs.
Yeah, they had a couple of nice play calls in there. It looked like a game where Tampa Bay was just going to run riot and absolutely destroy the Raiders. And then Baker makes a mistake or two. They turn the ball over. Their defense really struggles to stop the Raiders at various points. And yeah, it did get closer than it should have. And then they were able to go away at the end once Aiden O'Connell gets hurt. Desmond Ridder comes in. The chances of him executing that kind of comeback or completing it, I think, are fairly minimal. So ends up kind of where it should have been, but it definitely got closer than that for a while.
All right, as always, full breakdown tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Eastern time, sharp. We always start at 7 a.m. We'll go for about 2.5 hours breaking down every single game in detail. Sam, the 4 o'clock games were all wild. So let's start. The last one that we just saw, the Rams upset the Bills. It's 44-42 is the final. I mean, working from back to front, the Rams, well, at the very end, the Bills had a chance, right? They're down 9 points. I'm sorry, they're down 9 points, yes. And they have all 3 timeouts. They're up at the goal line, run a play. They have to keep all their timeouts. They decide to run the QB sneak. The Rams stop it. And that essentially, I think Brady called it. Everybody online called it. It was like, man, you just can't run the ball there. And that ended up being a huge moment. And before that, the Rams up 3, they did the whole, we're not going to settle for the field goal to go up 6. We don't trust ourselves just stopping Josh Allen from scoring a game-winning touchdown. They go for it on 4th and 5. They convert it, eventually get the touchdown. Great game management and execution by the Rams at the end here to beat the Bills.
Yeah, I mean, that 4th and 5 call, this is now twice within a week, right? The 2 coaches have decided to, look, going up by 6 is not actually worth that much. In fact, if anything, it might actually work against you. We are better off trying to keep the ball in our hands and try and win it on offense. It was Dan Campbell with the Lions. And interestingly, I think both were slightly different cases of why, even within the specific game, there were like pieces of information that might lean you in that direction as well. Dan Campbell came out and was explaining, look, we wanted to win the game on offense, right? Our defense has 13 players on IR. Our offense is virtually unstoppable. Why wouldn't we want the ball in the hands of our offense when we're trying to win the game rather than kick and then rely on a really banged up defense to make the plays? And then in the Rams game, in this game, Rams against the Bills, their offense hadn't been stopped all day. Like that was that was why they had the lead. So again, why wouldn't you want your offense to be making the plays? Buffalo has yet to demonstrate, really, that they can stop this defense. So 4th and 5, it's just another pitch and catch, and it was. Puka Nacua was basically unstoppable in the entire game. It was Tutu Atwell that made the 4th and 5 play, but then later in the drive on 3rd and 5, Puka Nacua ends up taking a screen in for a touchdown. But yeah, like keep the ball in the hands of the side that's winning. There's no point in kicking and going up by 6. You're giving them a chance to win the game. So 2 smart decisions.
Almost an identical play. Sean McVay and Liam Cohen. Actually amazing now that I'm saying this out loud, because, I didn't make the connection. Liam Cohen, of course, the former offensive coordinator for Sean McVay. It wasn't the game winning touchdown. Well, I guess it kind of was, but the touchdown when you're already up 1 score, the Raiders went all out blitz against the Bucs. The Bills went all out blitz against the Rams. Both teams had the perfect screen call, where as long as that first block is made, it's essentially a walk-in touchdown, and that's what happened. Bucs and Rams, great play call there. Like I said, outstanding execution. And it was my favorite Matthew Stafford to watch, Sam. Elite Matthew Stafford dropping dimes in, even some that didn't count. Demarcus Robinson, he had one negated. Offsetting pass interference penalty on the same play. Stafford was going throw for throw with Josh Allen. And look, Allen balled out. What's the stat? The teams were 245-0, Sam, with 6 touchdowns, no takeaways in whatever era. And the Bills just with the first loss in that instance. So I was shocked at how badly the Bills defense let them down today. And to me, that's the story. You give credit to the Rams, but I was surprised at how bad the Bills defense was today.
Both Josh Allen and Matthew Stafford, I think, were fantastic in that game. But yeah, the Bills defense could not stop that Rams offense all the way through the game. You're like, there's no way the Bills are going to successfully execute this comeback if for no other reason than they can't stop them. Like they can't get the drives back. And they got one of them. They scored a touchdown. Like every time for the majority of the game, every time the Bills scored, the Rams were answering with at least a touchdown, if not 2 of them, before the Bills scored again. The Bills get a touchdown. They finally force them 3 and out and then get a real chance at the score. But then comes that drive where the Rams go for it on 4th and 5 and then go for it on 3rd and 5 and score the touchdown. So ultimately, like the reason they lost this game was not the stuff at the end, which didn't help and could have been done better and minimize their chances of executing an extremely improbable comeback. The reason they couldn't get it done is because they simply could not stop that Rams offense when they needed to, outside of 1 drive.
Yes, absolutely. And that gives the Chiefs some breathing room now. 1.5 lead over the Bills for the number 1 seed. The Chiefs can essentially afford to lose a game and still be the number 1 seed in the AFC. Seattle 30, Arizona 18. They needed to keep pace now with the Rams. NFC West really had if you're an NFC West fan, Sam, you had a great week if you root for the NFC West for the most part. 3-1, and the only loss was the division game here. But yeah, Seattle, bit of a statement game here. Arizona's 3rd straight loss, but Zach Charbonnet filling in for Ken Walker, 134 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. Another pretty clean game by Geno Smith, and Seattle's defense making some big plays as well.
Yeah, NFC West fans went .750 in win percentage this week. They must be ecstatic.
I'm just saying, that's how college fans talk. Oh, if you're an ACC fan, if you're a Pac-2 fan, this is what you believe. So I'll speak to you the same way. NFC West fans here.
Yeah, I mean, this is a weird game because, we always make it this reductive, right? But Arizona kind of goes the way Kyler Murray goes. And was it the first play of the game or one of the first plays of the game? He drops this beautiful dime touchdown to Michael Wilson. And you're like, oh, Kyler's showed up, ready to play. And then has a couple of awful turnovers or interceptions after that. And suddenly, Seattle answers those with big scores, pretty quickly themselves. And now the Cardinals are in a hole, and suddenly Kyler Murray's not making all the plays that he needs to. And they were just never able to climb out of that hole.
Yeah, you're right. The Rams are completely different when Stafford balls out, and he's got a couple good pass catchers there. The Cardinals are completely different when all those guys are cooking. So, that was Teddy. That was Teddy in the background wandering around. He's looking for some Legos or something. Never mind him. It's not Harry. That one's Teddy. That's Teddy. Just turned 8. Everybody say happy birthday, Teddy. Happy birthday, December 3rd. But yeah, Seahawks are looking pretty good right now, man. Ernest Jones had one of those bad decisions by Kyler. It was Ernest Jones with the interception. He was their pickup a few weeks ago. That's been huge. So Seattle now by themselves in first place at 8-5. Rams are sitting there at 7-6. Then the Cardinals at 6-7, and then the Niners now at 6-7. All of a sudden looking like the old Niners once again. Did we write them off too soon? I mean, the record still impeding the comeback, but they're not completely dead. Niners win 38-13 against the Bears. There's all sorts of futility stats for the first half Bears over the last few weeks. Outscored 51-10 in the first half over the last 3 weeks. Outscored something like 550 yards to 58 over the last 2 weeks in the first half. Just a terrible start again. Niners got up 24-0 in the first half and never looked back.
Yeah, somebody was tweeting me. I don't have the whoever it was to hand, but they were like, "Is this the exploding whale game?" Right, the 49ers this week. They're not dead, so technically no. Like it feels like it because it feels like they should be dead, but they're not quite out of it yet. They're still alive. It was just a random week that they decided, no, we're actually going to show that we're still really good when we decide to play. Their stars had good games. I mean, George Kittle was an absolute monster, was putting himself up there with all-time tight end paces, had an incredible game. Isaac Guerrero, the third string running back, the rookie that they had to lean on because of IR to Christian McCaffrey and to Jordan Mason. That puts Isaac Guerrero up. He has a great game, and then he gets hurt, and suddenly you're down to the four-string running back. But yeah, the 49ers can still play. One big thing for this game, though, is they had Trent Williams back, right? And Trent Williams, I think, makes a significant difference to that offense. Remember last year when they were missing players, and one of the players that they were missing was Deebo Samuel. Did Trent Williams play, or did I make that up?
Which time?
I might have made that up.
Game? Which game?
This game.
I don't know offhand.
I think it was Jalen Moore at left tackle. Never mind. But I think they showed that they're still, whole analysis. They showed that they're still capable of having those monster games. Like they can show up against a good defense in Chicago and look like they're dominant still.
Yeah, it was more, but yeah, I mean, Purdy looked good again. I mean, we shouldn't, when people say throw out the snow games, it's not because they don't count or the team shouldn't adjust to the situation and get credit for that. It's just like, hey, the 49ers were running routes on, ice last week, and everybody's like, oh, the Niners are slow and all their receivers are slow. And like, you just make these, I don't know, ridiculous statements based off of one game in adverse conditions. But Guerrero with his 4.3 speed, they ran him on the wheel route. They had the McCaffrey wheel route that was wide open for a big gain. Guerrero had 2 rushing touchdowns. Jennings, who you mentioned, Kittle looked like faster than he's been all season. And then you have the crazy Brock Purdy stat line, 20 of 25 for 325, a cool 13 yards per attempt and two touchdowns. So yeah, it did feel like a little throwback Niners game. I'll tell you, the NFC West down the stretch here, it's going to be tight. It's going to be, I think, a whole lot of good football. And I still don't feel great about the Niners because the hole that they've dug, but they got the Rams this Thursday, man, at home. Rams at home this Thursday. Then at Miami, they have the Lions, and then they're at Arizona to finish the season. So they've got an opportunity here to see if they can get back in the race. But good week.
Because their games remaining, there's so many of them within the division, they still have a shot. They've left themselves with a couple of outs, but obviously they're in a deep hole. Otherwise, they wouldn't be with the record that they have.
So as we've said, tomorrow morning, we'll do every single game. We'll give you the blow-by-blow. We'll give you a little update on draft, too. The Giants losing. I think, are they going to be in line for the number 1 overall pick now? There's a whole lot of teams with 10 losses right now. So that race, there's 7 or 8 teams now with 10-plus losses. The race for the number 1 overall pick is going to be pretty intense over the next last few weeks of the season as well. So we'll break it all down game by game tomorrow morning. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe on the way out over here, and listen to us on audio as well. Check the mic, search it.